A lot of meeting tonight for this game as Chatfield rolls to his right under some pressure. He throws, he's got a man open and is caught by Garn. And Jared Garn is in for the touchdown for the Vikings. 56 yards.
Live from our Seton Hill University studios, this is Westmoreland on the Gridiron on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Here's your host, Sean Myers.
We welcome you into another episode of Westmoreland on the Gridiron here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. I'm Sean Myers. That smiling and waving man is Dan Flickinger. And Flick, there should be a lot of smiles on all of our faces because, unbelievably, we are now entering the last week of the regular season for WPIAL football. But before we look ahead to the final week, we have a lot to look back upon from Week 8. We'll run down all of the scores and top performers from this past Friday. Also, the Plays of the Week segment. We've got a couple of interviews. Matt Humbert, the championship-winning coach of the Belle Vernon area Leopards, and Jared Garn of Mount Pleasant. He has made a lot of headlines this year. He's been all over television. Now he's all over WSN and Westmoreland on the Gridiron. He is our Player of the Week. And we'll also look ahead, as we mentioned, to the Week 9 slate of games, the final game for many teams across the WPIAL. But you get to Week 8, and you know a lot of these games are massive in terms of the playoffs. Some teams trying to get in, some teams just trying to stay alive. And that applies for some of the biggest takeaways that we had, beginning with Southmoreland ultimately dropping a first-place showdown against Elizabeth Forward, a game that you were there for at EF, where the Scotties offensively just could not get it going. They've been so explosive all season long, but unfortunately for them, kind of dried up at the wrong time. 31-3 in favor of EF, a statement win for the Warriors. They are now in the driver's seat, and the Scotties still have some work to do just to make the playoffs.
Well, first of all, Sean, I want to welcome everyone back after our hiatus last week. I hope everybody understands. I was a little busy last week. My wife and I gave birth to our daughter, Lily. So we were a little bit busy, and it was 2 weeks earlier than expected. So unlike her dad, she was early, and usually I'm the opposite. Anyway,
you said it, not me.
I know. So everybody else says it. I don't know. I think I'm a little better. I'm improving. So let's talk about that Elizabeth Forward Southmoreland game. First of all, it was exciting. You know, Southmoreland hasn't been in a ton of those games over the years, so it was an exciting game going in. You have, Anthony Smith on one side, Charlie Niggett on the other side. And, Southmoreland played well. I don't know that the final score was quite indicative of how close the game was. It's not as if EF, ran out to a massive lead and that kind of thing. I think they kind of grinded down Southmoreland a little bit, wore them down, and then scored some touchdowns at the end. But I think it was the EF defense, as you mentioned, that was the difference. They only allowed 3 points. And actually, Southmoreland got some big plays against them. I remember 3 or 4 big plays on first down that Southmoreland was able to hit through the air. One, I think, was a run. But they weren't able to do anything once they were inching closer to the red zone. You look at the field goal early on that EF held them to. Anthony Smith, a freshman, right? His first big game that he's played in, real big game. He wasn't, at his best, but he was also pressured all night. So I don't care, what level of football you play in. If you're getting pressured, you're going to have a tough night. And I think that's what EF was able to do, is pressure Anthony. So I was really impressed by the Elizabeth Forward defense. Charlie Niggett did his thing, but I wouldn't say that he was like the factor in the game. He did have an interception on defense. I think he ran for over 100 yards, so he was still very effective. But I think it was more the EF defense as a whole that I was impressed by. And really, the Southmoreland defense made some big plays too. I remember one drive, they made like 3 or 4 sacks. And I guess if you have 3 or 4 sacks on a drive, that means the offense is converting first downs. I mean, they kept knocking EF behind the sticks, and EF would pick up the first down. It was kind of a weird dynamic there. But, I think Southmoreland got its feet wet a little bit. They still have a lot of young, talented players. And if you're Elizabeth Forward, they kind of established why they are in first place in the interstate.
Yeah, and remember, EF got off to a rough start this season, non-conference, but they were playing really good teams. I think the goal was that this might be the year, especially now that Belle Vernon was not in their way anymore, that they could break through. They certainly looked the part on Friday. There's some interesting notes as well. The connection between Coach DeMarco and Tim Bukowski. John DeMarco was at Southmoreland with Bukowski. So, I mean, those guys have a lot of respect. Obviously, they are still friends, but you kind of put that aside during the week. But I think that they know each other really well. So maybe EF, you could argue, has a little bit of an upper hand than other Southmoreland opponents that don't know Tim Bukowski and that crew quite as well as John DeMarco does. So congrats to him. Also, their quarterback is really good, Ryan Messina. Mm-hmm. He's not the number one guy when you think of EF. It is Charlie Niggett, but he was good last year, and he's taken an even bigger step this year. So that's one of probably the rare times that Southmoreland will go against an opponent that maybe has a more talented, or certainly at this point, more accomplished quarterback than they do in Anthony Smith. But I said they still have some work to do for the playoffs. They win this week, they're in, and they'll still get probably a pretty good seed. But it does put a little bit of pressure on. Now they do kind of have to go out there and make sure they take care of business. If not, then it gets into some tiebreakers and Gardner points potentially, and they don't want that. So they still control their own destiny, not only to make the playoffs, but to get a pretty good seed. And the seed is so important, right? Because they want to set themselves up for that first playoff win. So they have to get into the playoffs, but then they don't want to be playing one of the best teams. They don't want to be on the road. They want to be at home against a team that maybe kind of is on the back end of the teams that get into the postseason. So to your point, a lesson learned. I think maybe they'll be better for it, but we'll see their resiliency because now they're going to have to bounce back. Don't come apart on me here.
Oh, that might not be the first. That's not going to be the last time I do that. But
okay, all right. Yeah, you have a child now. You're getting sick. There's a lot going on in the Flick household nowadays. Well, let's transition to Hempfield area because they were in a game that turned out to be a playoff eliminator game. Win and they would have been in, but they lost against Mount Lebanon and they were eliminated because of some tiebreaker and Gardner considerations. So really a tough one for Hempfield area. I thought they got up to a good start in the game, but they had to settle for field goals. You kind of mentioned the same thing with Southmoreland. Probably should have had 2 touchdowns, instead had 2 field goals. And they were kind of behind the 8 ball once the half arrived, and the second half just got away from them. They fell 42-20 at home against Mount Lebanon. So the Blue Devils are now in the driver's seat. As we mentioned, the Spartans would have been in with the win. They are now eliminated because they play out of conference in week 9. Just a tough one for a team that I thought was playing some pretty good football. Now they had a loss against Seneca Valley on the road where they were competitive. This one's one that I thought they were going to have a real chance. Unfortunately, Coach Perry's team came in and their quarterback, Patrick Smith, was outstanding. Again, it goes to some missed opportunities early for a team in Hempfield that should have had the lead in the first half and just never really could take command.
Yeah, I think if instead of leading 6-0, they lead 14-0, it may have been a different game. Even though defensively, they let up a lot of points, but still, I think it can kind of change the flow of the game if they go up 14 there. And then, of course, Dom Dietrich's interception as well that really gave Mount Lebanon great field position. They ended up scoring there as well. And, when you get into these games, especially when a kind of a playoff spot's on the line, everything's magnified. So you have to be able to put the ball in the end zone. You can't turn the ball over. And that's unfortunately what Hempfield did, even though Dom played pretty well and certainly has played well this year. And, that's a disappointing thing, Sean. I think that this year a conference that Hempfield or Norwin, the 2 teams that are in 6A from Westmoreland County, they're trying to get to the playoffs. They had a chance. They really this year had a chance because maybe some other teams like Seneca Valley, Mount Lebanon, and Cannon McMillan are down a little bit. They really had a chance to make the postseason. I'm not saying they can't next year or future years, but it is a little bit disappointing that, they were right there. And we kind of thought, too, that Hempfield and Norwin are better than they've been, and I still believe that. Just a tough one there. Again, just not being able to capitalize really on their opportunities.
And also some injuries were looming large for the Spartans. Aiden Steinbeiser went out relatively early with injury and then did not come back. And Coach Kiefer told me going in, Brock Heisler was going to be questionable. He thought he would play, but he didn't know how much. I don't think he played a whole lot.
That's a big loss.
Offensively, yeah. I didn't see him out there. Defensively, maybe he played a little bit early, but just didn't have an impact on the game. And again, He wasn't anywhere close to 100%. So you take those two guys away, those are probably two of the five most important guys on that entire roster, maybe even better than that. So it's tough. I mean, Mount Lebanon had just one win, but they had played a meat grinder of a schedule. So unfortunately for the Spartans, they now know this will be their final game upcoming. They will not be postseason bound.
And Sean, I want to tease our plays of the week here a little bit. And I know you were there calling the game. So talk a little bit about Jacob Zerbini scoring the 2-point conversion there. As Paul Schofield wrote in his article, the offensive line blew open a big hole for him. That was a really neat moment.
Yeah, it was. And it was not something that Coach Kiefer tipped me off to beforehand, because I think it was completely based on the game situation. So we mentioned that final score. Really, that was a final score that was very misleading, because I think there were, 3 touchdowns in like the last 2 minutes of the game when the outcome had been decided. But the Spartans scored with about 2 minutes left. The game was over at that point. Realistically, they knew they weren't coming back, and Mount Lebanon knew the game was theirs. And after the touchdown, we saw Coach Kiefer sprinting out to like the middle of the field, and he went, told the refs, went over, told the Mount Lebanon sideline and checked everything with them. And Coach Perry was understanding, and he said, go ahead. And so it was an opportunity to get a player in that had not played this season for the Spartans, and Jacob Zerbini. And he got that cool moment. And I think maybe some of it is going to be on the clip that we show in a little bit. Coach Kiefer was getting everyone, not just his team, but the cheerleaders, the fans pumped up. And that was really cool. And it was a great ovation. And then you could see Zerbini, even after the play was over, he was so fired up on the side. And by the way, our colleague Roger Downs, who does PA, I think he knows Jacob a little bit. He said he's just such a great kid. And it was Roger, you could tell, was very impressed by that moment as well. So really awesome. Cool stuff there. Obviously, you wish it would have been in a win, but it does not take away from that being just a special moment on what otherwise was kind of a sour senior night for Hempfield area. Well, it was not a sour night for Greater Latrobe. We mentioned the Spartans' postseason hopes are gone. That's not the case for the Wildcats. They somehow stayed alive because they edged Gateway, a big win for Greater Latrobe, a team that really had been sputtering. They went 28-27 against the Gators. And so what this does is it keeps them alive and in the thick of the wild card race. We know they will not get one of the top 3 spots. We'll get to that momentarily. But now it's up to what they can do this week to maybe convince the committee that they deserve to be one of the 3 wild card teams. And we'll get into this a little bit more momentarily, but the win for them is massive. And the fact that they were able to do that, because I'm going to be honest, I thought their playoff hopes were kind of lost when we found out Alex Tash is out for the season. And then they had those couple of disappointing setbacks, including a loss against Kiski area. I thought that pretty much ended their hopes. They find a way to win at Gateway, and now at least gives them that opportunity if they can pull off an upset. I think, Ron Prady will have an argument that they should be postseason bound. So it's a big, big win, and it could be even bigger potentially with how things play out this upcoming week.
Yeah, it'd be really tough to keep them out of the playoffs if they finish the year with wins over Gateway and Penn Trafford, if they can win, this Friday night. But man, they showed so much resiliency, Sean, because you're right. I mean, to lose Tash, and I mean, you could tell, losing to Kiski the way that they did, you could tell that they didn't have the same mojo mentally, and obviously, without Tash out there, that's such a huge thing on both sides of the ball. But to see the resiliency and to kind of pick themselves up off the floor, off the ground, and be able to go out and beat a Gateway team that, maybe isn't as good as they've been, but they're still good enough. I mean, really, they're Gateway. I mean, look at their quarterback, put up huge numbers again this week. So, they can still kind of beat anybody. They've lost a lot of close games this year. That was really impressive. And man, so much is shouldered right now by John Wetzel. 4 touchdown passes, 139 yards rushing to go along with the 4 TDs through the air. Just incredible stuff by him. And, when he doesn't have his Robin or his Batman, however you want to look at it, it really puts a lot of pressure on him, but he really came through in a big way. And so that's what makes, this Friday so exciting to see Latrobe and Penn Trafford play. I wish Tash could be a part of it, but he was cheering on his teammates last week. But yeah, I mean, if Latrobe can pull out the upset against Penn Trafford, they put themselves in a really, really good position to make the postseason. We'll see how it all shakes out.
Well, there will be one Tash who's going to be there making plays, Andy
Yes.
Tash, who had a terrific touchdown grab on a ball that, he kind of just beat the defender one-on-one, came back and made a spectacular grab. The fact that Wetzel was able to get it done through the air. I talked to Ron Prady just about every week, and he had said so many times, we think that we can throw the football, but we just haven't had a need to do it. Well, they've been needing it the last few weeks. Obviously, things have changed because they were struggling to score. They really had just a woeful performance against Pine Richland. That's where they lose to Woodland Hills competitive. Then they lose to Kiski. They get blown out by Pine Richland. That's when I was thinking this team might, lose out. And the fact that they're able to get it done through the air, something that they really had not done to a large degree this season, I think that maybe gives them some hope this week because they weren't going to win the game with just John Wetzel and Brady Pahovic running the football. They were going to have to, be two-dimensional. And the fact that he was able to throw it well and Andy Tash and others came up with some big catches, that was massive. So again, they keep their hopes alive. And now we can really start thinking about the playoffs and what it's going to take to get in. We already know 3 teams from Westmoreland County have clinched playoff berths. 2 of the 3 are from that same Class 5A Big East Conference. Penn Trafford, which is locked into the 2nd spot in that conference. Franklin Regional, which is locked into the 3rd spot. So we already know Woodland Hills is the 1st place team. They're the champs. Penn Trafford is the 2nd place team. And Franklin Regional is the 3rd place team. So those are the 3 representatives that are guaranteed playoff spots. And now it comes down to Greater Latrobe, Kiski area, and Gateway, all likely battling for 1 spot. But for PT and Franklin Regional, yeah, you could say they've nothing really to play for because they're already in. But that's not true either, Flick, because it's all about playoff seeding and positioning in addition to momentum at this point. We also mentioned GCC getting in. That took a little bit longer than expected because they did not initially win against Frazier. That was a no contest, but ultimately it turned into, I believe, a forfeit. I believe Bill Beckner broke that news earlier this week because Frazier was not going to be able to make that game up. So with that win, the Centurions are officially, and they were going to almost certainly be in anyway. So we have 3 teams in, and we have at least another 6 or 7, maybe even 8 teams that have a very legitimate shot, including Southmoreland, Mount Pleasant, and Greensburg Salem, all from the 3A Interstate Conference. Jeanette also in Class 1A has an opportunity, and we mentioned those 3 teams all vying for a wild card spot. So it makes for some interesting scenarios. It also makes for a very stressful time because it's new rules. We will not know after the games are decided on Friday who will be all the teams in because it's going to go to the committee. And that is going to create some crazy situations. And in particular, 5A, this is something you and I talked about. If theoretically Gateway, Greater Latrobe, and Kiski area all finish with the same record, which would happen if the Cavaliers lose against Woodland Hills and the Wildcats lose against Penn Trafford, well, then the committee probably has to pick one of those teams. Gateway, based on Gardner points or whatever other formula, would technically be the 4th place team. Greater Latrobe would be the 6th place team.
So in most years or in previous years, Gateway would be the team that gets in.
Now it would be a mathematical formula. Now, Greater Latrobe, the 6th place team based on that, just beat the 4th place team, Gateway. Wouldn't you, if you're the committee, say we should probably take the team that just beat Gateway instead of taking Gateway?
Yeah. That's that's going to be very interesting. And again, this is a change this year. It's basically based on opinion as opposed to, just mathematical formula. In the past, Gateway would, again, in this situation, in this scenario, would have, got into the playoffs based on Gardner points. But again, as you mentioned, Sean, do you take Gateway or do you take the team that just beat Gateway in Latrobe?
And keep in mind, Kiski beat Latrobe.
And Kiski beat Latrobe as well. So yeah, I have a feeling if this does come to fruition, and it very easily could, there's going to be a lot of talk behind closed doors with the WPIAL committee on the wild card, team from if there is one from this conference.
Yeah. Another thing is if Bell Vernon area, for instance, falls this week, and we're going to hear from their man, Matt Humbert, in a little bit, they would be potentially in for a wild card, but they would be going against a couple of third place teams for two other conferences. So then they're competing against, maybe a West Mifflin. So how do you evaluate that? Do you give the benefit of the doubt to the team that just won 2 straight state titles? It's going to be crazy. Greensburg, Salem will potentially have an option to get in as a wild card team if they don't win this week. So there's going to be a lot of teams where we just don't know how it's going to play out. And that's kind of a helpless feeling for the coaches and players, I would imagine, not knowing what's going to ultimately come down to some people in a room that make that decision. So,
and just so people know, the brackets will be revealed on Saturday afternoon. I don't know that they said what time. I don't know if it's 1:00 or around there. Maybe it could be later, depending on if the discussions, continue.
Yeah, you want to give everyone as much time as possible to prepare for those playoff games. But I do not envy the people who have to make that decision. I'll say that much, Flick. It's going to be really tough. And the whole idea is that you want to make sure the deserving teams get in. If there's a really good conference that has 4 great teams, you don't want to say we just take 3 teams, because Upper St. Clair was the victim of that last year. Again, I think that basically the situation is going to be kind of the same, though. You're picking and choosing, and there's going to be some teams that will have legitimate arguments that won't make it in. So the best way to avoid that, be one of the 3 teams that we mentioned that have already clinched, and several more. Again, with wins this week, teams off the top of my head that would clinch: Southmoreland would clinch, Mount Pleasant would clinch, Bell Vernon, and Jeanette. Those teams all would clinch with wins. So they control their destiny of getting in. Potentially other teams could get in as well, but that might come down to some other scenarios, including a committee. So there's going to be a lot that we're going to have to pay attention to, not only Friday, but Saturday as well. Well, we'll have a lot more to get to on this show. We'll run down all the scores from week 8 of the regular season. We also have our Plays of the Week segment. Matt Humbert, the head coach of Bell Vernon, and Jared Garn, the star player for the Mount Pleasant area Vikings, as well as a look ahead at week 9, the final week of the regular season. That's all upcoming as we continue right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
That's the power of Bowser.
Drive like a champion with Bowser Chevrolet of Monroeville. You're always on the winning team with Bowser Chevrolet. Visit BowserChevrolet.com 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and get the power of Bowser in your hands. Customize your payments, apply for financing, get a value for your trade and more with the Bowser Express Store. See the full lineup of Chevy cars, trucks, and SUVs at BowserChevrolet.com. Bowser Chevrolet, where the power of Bowser is yours.
Play It Again Sports in Greensburg is your locally owned and operated sporting goods store. We set ourselves apart by offering a wide variety of both new and used equipment at competitive prices. Located in the Greengate East Plaza, below Walmart, Play It Again Sports' knowledgeable staff will help you and your family prepare for every athletic season. Whether you're looking to buy, sell, or trade, we are here as your one-stop shop. At Play It Again Sports in Greensburg, everybody plays.
We roll along here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron. You know where to find us each and every Wednesday at 7 p.m., which, by the way, Flick, we're going to have our big playoff show. Hopefully a few playoff shows next week. So we'll have a lot of interviews.
Sean going to be busy.
Yeah, I will be very, very busy. The coaches will be busy as well, but they will be glad if they're talking to me, because that means they're in the playoffs. We're going to hear from a coach hopeful to be in the playoffs, Matt Humbert of Bell Vernon, in a little bit. Jared Garn of Mount Pleasant, he's also hopeful he'll be in the playoffs with the Vikings. That'll be upcoming. We'll look ahead at week 9 as well. But let's run down all the scores from week 8, which is the penultimate week of the regular season. Some of these games we've already talked about in depth, including Mount Lebanon's 42-20 victory over Hempfield area. You can go back and watch that game. You can also watch Woodland Hills with a 27-17 win against Franklin Regional. So that gives the Wolverines the conference title. Although not lost in the equation, Kyle Dupill, 200-plus yards again. He continues to have an unbelievable season Truly one of the best seasons we've seen a running back have in quite a while here in Westmoreland County.
We also saw a heck of a touchdown run. You pointed that out to me,
Scoop.
Sean, by Scoop. Holy
Yes,
cow.
the crazy thing is Woodland Hills lost their quarterback early in this game. Cam Walter went out with injury, and it was the coach's son who went in, Prince Tarrant, and did enough. I would imagine other guys stepped up in a big way as well, but that's a big win for Woodland Hills. The fact that they lost their QB pretty early on and still found a way to knock off Franklin Regional, so congrats to them. The conference champions, both those teams we mentioned in the postseason. A big win for Mount Pleasant area, 31-14. So the Vikings inch closer. They still technically could win the conference title if they're able to capture a victory this week, depending on what happens with Southmoreland as well. So Mount Pleasant gets that Westmoreland County win against the Trojans. We already highlighted EF with a pretty impressive second half, wins 31-3 against Southmoreland. You can go back and watch all those games we just mentioned. You can also go back and listen to Jeanette's 42-0 win over Springdale.
I just wanted to jump in real quick too, Sean, before we get
Dan.
too far away from that Mount Pleasant game. Obviously, big win for there, but a big game this Friday against Elizabeth Forward, and unfortunately, they may not have Cole Chatfield, who got injured against Derry early in the second quarter, I believe it was. So we'll see if he's able to play Friday, but he may not be able to, and it'll make it even more challenging against EF.
Yeah, but I mean, Jared Garn does everything else. Why not let him
That's true.
throw?
Throw him behind
Yeah,
center,
I mean,
too. I mean, why not?
Yeah, he's had such a great season. Yeah, that's going to be a big one to watch, certainly, on Friday. We mentioned Jeanette with a 42-0 win over Springdale as they inch closer to the playoffs. Norwin with Tristan Tavares back at quarterback nearly knocked off Cannon McMillan, but ultimately the Big Mac scored a 27-26 victory. Norwin is eliminated from postseason contention. 7 consecutive losses after a 2-0 start for the Knights. Penn Trafford is in. We mentioned that, courtesy of a 35-14 win at Armstrong. They were up 35-0 at the half. And one of the big stories, Flick, no one has ever had a more eyebrow-raising 1 carry for 3-yard performance than Ben Grabowski, who made his return to the field for PT. I would imagine they are certainly easing him back in. I think that stat line kind of tells the story, but from what we saw from him last year, he could be a difference maker. So it's great for them to get a win and get him back in the fold as well.
And it's great to get him back, too, not for the first round of the playoffs, right? Get your feet wet a little bit, 1 carry. Maybe he has an increased workload against Latrobe this week, and then he's closer to full go maybe, in the first round of the playoffs for Penn Trafford. So I think it was important to at least get him in the game for a carry, and then maybe you'll see that increase against Latrobe on Friday.
Speaking of Greater Latrobe, a 28-27 thriller. They knock off Gateway. The Wildcats back over 500. They are 5-4, and for the time being, stay alive in the wild card discussion. Class 4A, Bell Vernon area 49-7 over Ringgold as the Leopards improved to 4-3. We will hear from their headman, Matt Humbert, just a little bit later on. Greensburg Salem with the big win, 37-8 over the Yacht Cougars. And I know we've mentioned this story before, but it really was a game where Rich Bowen kind of came to the forefront, of course, with Greensburg Salem and then his background at York as well. Golden Lions are doing some nice things, and I think that they've really positioned themselves. Even if they're not able to knock off Southmoreland, they might have already done enough to potentially earn a wild card spot. And for the Cougars, much like the Norwin Knights, 7 consecutive in the loss column after they started out with a couple of wins. Amani Christian still looks the part of a front runner in Class 3A. The Saints win 60-6 over the Burrell Buccaneers. Amani Christian is now 9-0. On the other side of it, Valley Vikings are 0-9 after their 44-13 loss against Deer Lakes. Steel Valley 53, Ligonier Valley 7. The Rams fall to 3-6. And Dan, Donald Barksdale had one of the most incredible stat lines.
Oh, goodness.
I have ever seen in my life. I don't remember exactly how many yards, but he went over 300 on 5 carries. It was just insane. I mean, he's been doing some damage for a long time, but the Rams had absolutely no answer. And for good measure, his brother went over 100 yards rushing as well. So the dynamic Barksdale duo just too much for Roger Vital's crew. And a game that did not count towards the conference standings, but could potentially count quite a bit towards wild card implications. Kiski area edges Plum 15-14. The Mustangs are a team that would potentially be in the wild card discussion out of their conference. And the Cavaliers, as we mentioned, they are in the wild card conversation out of the Big East Conference. So that is a big win for the Cavaliers, even though it doesn't help their conference standings. A couple of college games. IUP narrowly edges Seton Hill. The Griffins almost got the Crimson Hawks for the second year in a row, but homestanding IUP wins 20-13. And Westminster beats up on St. Vincent 56-0. The Bearcats now 1-6 on the season. Let's take a look at the top statistical performers from week 8 of the regular season, the top passer, rusher, and receiver from the entire district, and then some notables from Westmoreland County as well. Elvis Kousakis of Gateway, the top passer, 314 yards for the freshman quarterback. They don't make freshmen like they used to when it comes to quarterback play. We are seeing some prolific passing numbers from ninth graders as Kousakis goes 27 of 39 for 314. Tristan Tavares, a gutsy return to action for the Knights, 24 of 37 for 259. Curdy Wade, 10 of 10 for Bell Vernon area for 233 yards. Don Dietrich of Hempfield area passes for 186. Cole Chatfield, 172 despite leaving due to injury. And Johnny Louver, 159 yards through the air for Penn Trafford. The top rusher comes by way of West Mifflin, a name that we said a few times last year, Armand Hill, as he goes for 334 yards on the ground. The top performer on the ground in Westmoreland County, once again, Kyle Dupill of Franklin Regional with 208 yards. Max Doherty of Derry area, 175. He has really emerged as a big-time performer in recent weeks. Gio Rotroff of Norwin, 162 on the ground. John Wetzel of Greater Latrobe, 161. And Cole Doppelhauer, who's done it all this season for Bell Vernon, goes for 146 rushing. The top receiver in the entire WPIAL, he happens to reside in Westmoreland County.
Hey.
And it is Dom Smith of Penn Trafford, a player who has not been a big pass catcher. 3 grabs, 172 yards as he had a breakthrough performance. Anthony Cruz of Bell Vernon area, 4 catches for 118 yards. That'll do it for a look back at week 8 with all of the scores and top performers. We'll take a quick break, but when we come back, you have to stick around. It is another edition of Plays of the Week. And a little bit later on, Matt Humbert and Jarrett Garn will be our special guest interviews and a Week 9 preview as well. That's upcoming right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Whether you're just stopping in for a drink at the bar or having lunch or dinner, give one of D'Annunzio's seasonal drink specials a try. Our refreshing house-made sangria comes in 3 flavors, red, white, and peach. We have local craft beers on tap as well. Plus, D'Annunzio's offers our very own private label wine. We have Chardonnay, White Zinfandel, Pinot Grigio, Moscato, Cabernet, Merlot, Pinot Noir, and Champagne at D'Annunzio's.
Get to Mike Hamlin Hyundai during the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event. Drive the new 2024 Hyundai Elantra SEL or Tucson SE with 1.99% financing for up to 60 months. All vehicles are backed by the Mike Hamlin Advantage oil changes for life.
Welcome back to Westmoreland on the Gridiron, a jam-packed show on this penultimate week, looking back at week 8 of the regular season. That's one of my favorite words, by the way, Flick, if you haven't noticed already. I say it as much as I possibly can.
They always say that. Now that I have 2 kids, I'm not allowed to play video games. When I used to, on I think it was PGA Tour Golf, they would always say the penultimate hole here at
17.
Wherever. Oakmont. Yes, it was always 17. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. All right. Well, no penultimate, maybe just ultimate, as we now look at the very best plays from this past week. It is time for Plays of the Week. We begin with Franklin Regional, and while the Panthers ultimately came up short against Woodland Hills, Kyle Dupill continued to add to his incredible season. The senior notched a third-quarter touchdown to put the Panthers in the lead at the time. with Jonathan Whaley providing the commentary.
Bennett, Scoop Smith locked up in single coverage on the near side. Then they get the ball to Dupil. Dupil's got a lane. Dupil's got a 12-yard touchdown run by the human bowling ball. Senior Kyle Dupil and Franklin Regional gets the lead back on a 12-yard touchdown sprint. His 14th touchdown of the season for Kyle Dupil. Extra point to come.
Has there been a more consistent running back in the WPIAL this year than Kyle Dupil? It's almost week in and week out. He's ripping over 200 yards every week and gets the touchdown there and pulled Franklin Regional right back into the game before Woodland Hills was able to pull away. But, man, I mean, again, knock on wood for him, but he stayed healthy, durable, and every single week he's there getting a ton of yards.
Is that a new nickname as well? The human bowling ball? Is that?
I think he's used it before. Maybe not as much as Mr. Electricity, but.
Yeah, I mean, I assumed at this point he must have had a nickname for him. So maybe just the first time I picked up on it. Nonetheless, he has been a human, whatever you want to call him in a positive way. Dupil has been incredible all season long. Well, speaking of incredible, we continue plays of the week with Mount Pleasant and the incredible Jarrett Garn, who had himself a big night once again in the win against Derry area, including a touchdown less than a minute into the contest. His connection from Cole Chatfield set the tone for the Vikes, as detailed by John Flickinger and coach Tom Esposito.
A lot of meeting tonight for this game as Chatfield rolls to his right under some pressure. He throws, he's got a man open and is caught by Garn. And Jarrett Garn is in for the touchdown for the Vikings. 56 yards from Chatfield to Garn. Fourth touchdown reception of the season for Jarrett. And the Vikings lead 6-0, and the big plays continue to haunt the Trojans.
That was a big play. He was virtually wide open coming across the middle. And you know, kind of made it easy for Chatfield to find him.
One thing I didn't realize about Jarrett Garn is he's a track star. I didn't know that until I was preparing for my interview with him, and he kind of showed that speed right there. I know that Jason Fazekas was really excited to use him because of his speed. At the beginning of the year, he was talking about how he'd be, you know, kind of a running back, wide receiver, and splitting out in the slot and everything like that. And right there, he showed his speed. And Cole Chatfield put the ball right on him.
He's also a soccer star, isn't he?
He is.
Yeah,
he is a three-sport athlete. If he played in the winter, he could be a four-sport athlete, for goodness sake.
Well, he's just lazy.
He does it all. Yeah, a little bit. We need to get him out doing something.
Well, we'll continue plays of the week in that same game, and we'll look on the Derry area side of things as the Trojans were quick to respond, and they did so with some trickery. Max Doherty to Anthony Sacco to Carson Wires created Derry's first score, with John and Espo calling the action.
Up here for the band, so second down for the Trojans coming up. And it's Doherty taking the snap, giving to Sacco, nice. And wide open. The pass is caught by Wires, and Carson Wires is going to score for the Trojans. A little trickery out of Coach Milan's mailbox there. It was Doherty taking the direct snap. He gives it to Sacco, and he finds Carson Wires, the freshman, wide open for the touchdown.
Yeah, it's something we may have to do tonight, you know. Show some trickery and some gadget plays, you know. That's a heck of a play.
A little trick there for the Trojans. And really, you know, the throw was good by Sacco, but Wires kind of made the play too, at least made the play get into the end zone with that nice little move after he caught it, able to get by the defensive back and take it in for 6. And at that point, I know it's still early in the game, but the Trojans were able to answer.
And by the way, if anyone is giving out Halloween candy, make sure you actually hand it out to the children. Don't just put it in your mailbox and force them to come there to get the candy.
No, that's not a good idea, because what happens is the kids take more than one piece, and then it's all gone.
I use the whole mailbox.
Oh, they use the whole darn mailbox. Yes. And actually, if we're using the mailboxes in the neighborhood my brother and I live in, they're actually not at our house. So it doesn't even make sense. We have to go where we enter the neighborhood. So there's no sense of even using a mailbox for the candy.
Yeah, I just wanted to come to your house. Nonetheless, we'll continue plays of the week. We've got some more treats ahead with Hempfield area. And although the Spartans were certainly disappointed in losing to Mount Lebanon, the other Mount, there were a special moment late in the contest as Jacob Zerbini came in and delivered a 2-point conversion that sent the crowd into a frenzy, with myself and Jack Ridenauer setting the stage.
And look at Kiefer getting his cheerleaders and his sideline pumped up. Zerbini looks like he's going to line up here in the backfield. He's got Allison and Dietrich around him here. He's going to take the snap. Bobbles it, and he gets in. And that's a great moment for the Spartans on a 2-point conversion by Zerbini. And you can tell based on the reaction from his teammates and all of the students here that means a little bit something extra.
Yeah, you have to tip your cap to Coach Nick Kiefer as well, making sure that moment comes to life for Zerbini.
What a cool moment right there, Sean. That had to have been so cool to be there and to hear everyone cheering. And I'm sure people were, cheering in the press box and that type of thing. And a big tip of the hat, as Jack Ridenauer mentioned, to Nick Kiefer. Those moments make you realize that it's way, way more than just a football game. And to be able to do something like that in a football game where you have all of those fans there, just a moment that I'm sure he and his family will remember forever.
Yeah, there's a lot about sports that's making memories and moments, and that's one that I think everyone on the Spartan side is going to remember, and certainly Jacob Zerbini. So congrats to him. Cool moment for the Spartans, albeit in a losing effort. We'll wrap up Plays of the Week with Jeanette and the Jayhawks. Were explosive once again in a dominant win against Springdale. It took just 2 plays for them to take command. Kimani Brown and Jace Powell hooked up for a score in the blink of an eye, with Brent Wiggum and Anthony D'Annunzio painting the picture.
Long snap count, Brown gets it. Going to throw, wide receiver screen. Jace Powell makes the catch across the 40, 35, 30, and he will put the afterburners on. Jace Powell into the end zone, first score of the night. 45-yard touchdown pass, Kimani Brown to Jace Powell. 2 plays, that's all it takes for the Jeanette Jayhawks to get on the board here at McKee Stadium. We talked about it so many times. Jace Powell, so effective when he gets the football out of the backfield, just in the flat there. That is his strong point. Kimani Brown finds him wide open there, and Jace does the rest into the end zone for the score.
Hey, do you think if I tell Brent every time Jace Powell scores a touchdown to say, like Step Brothers, do you think he'll do it?
No.
Okay. But I won't. I think
because he'd have to do so much. He would, it would get, overplayed because of all the touchdowns that Jace has scored this season. So.
I'm telling you, man, it's right there on the tip of his tongue. JW would definitely do it.
Well, that is true. So Jeanette, of course, we mentioned they now have an opportunity. Win and you're in this week. They've had some big play guys all season long. It's a fun team to watch, and certainly I think would be one that deserves to get into the postseason. That'll do it for Plays of the Week. We will take a break. When we come back, I'll talk to a man who hopes that his team will be in the postseason about a week from now. That is Bell Vernon area's championship-winning head coach, Matt Humbert. That's upcoming next right here on the Westmoreland Sports Network's Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Along the arc of a woman's life, there are many passages. Growing up, chasing dreams, building a career, embracing wisdom born of experience. There are times that make good health and well-being so vital. We provide care that helps women thrive at any age, at any stage. Independence Health System. Expert care here.
Welcome back to Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Sean Myers now joined by Matt Humbert, the head coach of the Bell Vernon area Leopards, who are now 4-3 on the season, a 3-game winning streak, including a 49-7 victory against Ringgold last week. Matt, first off, congrats on the recent success. What have you seen from your team over the last 3 weeks that's allowed 3 to go in the win column?
Oh, I think growth has been a big part of our motif all year. Coming into this year, we had a lot of kids that were jockeying for different positions, and there was a lot of inexperience. we felt that we had the right pieces there. We felt that we had some quality there. It was just a matter of kind of, figuring out that puzzle piece. And we always talk about that yearly because I feel like us and every other program in America goes through that. But this year was kind of really a challenge in terms of the offensive line, especially. We lost 5 offensive linemen. So, you're not only trying to figure out who your starting 5 is and who your 7 that are going to rotate, but then you're trying to figure out who your guards and your tackles are and whatnot. So I think one of the keys is if you look at us right now, prior to week 5, there's a lot of different kids in different places. You have a kid like Jackson Alexander that didn't really even start playing linebacker and tight end with us till week 5. You have a kid like Ethan Barron who didn't even start center till week 5 or 6. And then we've switched some things up on the line, moved some different positions. So I think that obviously is one of the reasons that we have had some success in the past few weeks. I think also health. If anybody knows anything about our program, we have been without DeAubrey Lightfoot for 5 weeks. Him being injected into the lineup has been a huge advantage for us at the safety position and really at the receiving position. I mean, if you look, he's one of our premier receivers coming into this week. So Wade being healthy, he missed 2 games. It's just a little bit of everything. Inexperience, getting experience, jockeying different positions around, and health, I think, has able to prevent us or propel us to being successful the past few weeks. And then the last thing, without being long-winded, I mean, we had a tough schedule to start off with. When you have injuries, lack of experience, and then you're facing, McKeesport, Aliquippa, South Fayette, Thomas Jefferson, that's not an easy road of sledding, especially when you might be knocked down a peck or 2 because of those different scenarios.
I know the last couple of years, the tough competition before the conference schedule was probably ideal because you needed those types of challenges. This year, with what you said was a pretty inexperienced team, a lot of guys still trying to find their way. Do you think it was beneficial and sped up the process, or was it maybe a little bit of a situation where playing that tough competition puts you guys behind the 8 ball heading into the conference?
It's a weird dynamic that I think about often. I think it's kind of a moot point. I think that we definitely strive for that competition, but at the 4A level, you're obviously going to get that. I think that, just one of those things where, kind of bad things happen in football, and that's life, and you have to embrace. And I just think with the injuries that kind of plagued us early on, I honestly think that, the goal is you don't want to lose your kids mentally. You don't want to have them not believe. You don't want to have them not have that optimistic, positive feeling. So that's always the big thing. You lose 1 or 2, you never want to do it, but it is what it is. You move forward. And we've proven that over the past few years with early losses. You just wanted to make sure that the mental psyche was as tough as the mental psyche of the kids that have come in the program before. And, sitting here to this day, I think it has been, which is gratifying. So I still think that that's the type of schedule that we need, regardless of what our latter portion of the schedule looks like. I just think that, we kind of start off with a little bit of bad luck this year with some of the injuries and whatnot, but, no excuses. We grew from them. We kind of expanded from them, and we're hoping that, this is the week that we finally put everything together and really kind of show what we're capable of.
You were a pretty good quarterback in your day. Did you ever have a game where you completed every pass you attempted?
No, I have not. So, it's ironic. I don't want to say it's ironic, but, looking back at some of the quarterbacks and not looking at myself, but looking at some of the Bo Vernon quarterbacks, I don't think I've ever had a kid be a pitch perfect game like Curdy did at 10 for 10. So, we talked about that over the weekend with the staff, and I think that's a hard thing to accomplish, and I'm happy he was able to accomplish that.
I know obviously he has improved as the season's gone along. He's had some really good games recently. I would say offensively, probably the one constant has been Cole Doppelhauer. We saw plenty of him last year. He's taken on an even bigger role, and he's, receiver or runner, probably been your best guy most weeks. How has he taken his game to even a higher level in 2024?
I mean, if you look at it last year and you kind of break us down last year, he was a huge part of it last year. I mean, I think we were blessed and fortunate that, we had all the guys that we do. And I think the thing that kind of got lost in the shuffle was Cole's contribution last year. I mean, he played a lot of reps, played a lot of meaningful reps. I think the thing that I don't want to say surprised us, because we always know Cole's a gamer and he's a tough kid. I think his contributions in the passing game have been a really nice addition to the offense. And I think we needed that. When Zoe was kind of out those few weeks and DeAubrey wasn't around, all of the workload pretty much was on Anthony. And, that's hard to kind of put everything on one kid. I think of the McKeesport game, we had really Anthony was the only one that has been the staple, kind of playing that position. And so I think Cole has been able to alleviate some of that pressure. And we also, made the conscious effort to get Anthony some more touches in the backfield and let Cole play receiver a little bit. Cole's been so dynamic with the early portion of the season catching the football. We'd be remiss not to have him keep doing that. And Anthony is the type of kid that we might haven't been able to get him the ball passing wise. He's just that type of kid that's electrifying with the ball in his hand. So that's why over the past few weeks, we've kind of dropped him back and literally have just given him the ball. And I think that's worked out well for us. So I think we're kind of getting back to the shades of what we like to see at Bo Vernon with the multiplicity of what we do offensively. And I think we lacked that a little bit early on. A little bit was growing pains, a little bit was injuries, a little bit of it was a filling out process. And, you got to remember, this is Curdy's first go at it. And, Curdy's first start, and you're like, all right, have fun, go to the pit. Let's ready to roll. I mean, it hasn't been, we haven't had that kind of, okay, let's let our hair down, breathe, and let's kind of try to methodically attack teams, because every week was just battling, trying to figure out how to win that football game because of the caliber of competition. So I think now that we finally have been able to, get to our part of the schedule that hasn't been extremely robust, I think it's been allowing the kids, especially kind of Curdy, to really establish himself, refine himself. And if I look at from where he was week 1 to week now, just with the nomenclature, huddle procedures, how he commands the offense, how he regurgitates the verbiage to the offense, it's night and day. So unfortunately, you just need that experience to set in, and you need contributions from kids like Cole Doppelheimer to circle back to that. He's been kind of our Swiss Army knife, and he's kind of taken that Quentin Martin role that was there last year. So we're hoping that we can continue deep doing that with him.
So 3 wins now in the conference. You sit at 3-1, and yet because of the playoffs being smaller in Class 4A, you are guaranteed nothing at this point. If you win this week against Trinity, you will be in. If not, then you kind of probably have to sweat it out a little bit with the wild card process. Sure. So there's a lot on the line. What's that dynamic like heading into the final week of the regular season, knowing that the postseason is not guaranteed? Because that's much different than where you were the last couple of years.
Oh, it's the poster board material daily. I mean, we talk about that fear constantly, and that is a fear, fear that you're not going to be able to extend the season. And, you hope that the kids kind of respond to that concept that, nothing is given. You have to earn everything, and it's going to be a dogfight. You're going to have to claw, you're going to have to scratch, you're going to have to really dig in deep to get into the postseason. And you're correct. That's never usually been a problem with us over the past really 9 seasons, because of the different dynamic, because of the smaller playoff bracket. You lose 1 or 2 and it gets really dicey. I think the wild card thing going more to the discretion of the committee is better than just the Garner points. And obviously Upper St. Clair kind of is that poster child of that right there from last year. So, I mean, the fear of us not extending the season is real. And I think that's kind of what's been kind of fueling the fire for the kids this week. And we hope that they're ready to roll and hungry enough to understand that that expiration date is right there. And we want to do everything that we can to extend it.
Trinity's a good team. They have a very good quarterback as well. So what are some of the biggest keys to have success against the Hillers?
So obviously you just mentioned it. You can't get number 2 rolling. If number 2 rolls, they roll. So their offense goes with him. He's a very talented kid. If you look at what he did not only this year, but last year, they were able to upset Thomas Jefferson. That was a big win for their program and their program's history. And number 2's thumbprint was all over that game. So they love to run. They love to run a little bit of option. They do it well. Dan's a good coach. He's a good program builder, a smart coach, so he's going to have them ready to go. But obviously, the game plan is you can't let number 2 beat you, and that's not an easy task to accomplish. So I think now when I look at teams that run the football well and teams that have option aspects to their repertoire, I kind of go back to the McKeesport game, and I'd like to think that right now, personnel wise, we're pretty much fully healthy with the exception of one position, and I think we're different. So I mean, if I look at the last time that we really suited up against a double or a triple option team, the whole makeup of our defense in terms of our outside linebackers and our safeties was a whole different dynamic. So we're hoping that health and us getting healthier will really help with that. But I think one of the things that really sticks out to me is it's not only number 2, it's the true freshman, number 57 on defense, the nose tackle. He's a really good football player for a freshman. And number 66, the transfer from Wash High. I mean, those 2 kids right there are difference makers. They got a solid linebacking core. Number 21's a really good kid. So I think their 3 down really help propel their defense into being successful. And it's probably, when it comes to odd fronts, it might be the most solid 3-4 team that we've seen all year. And we've seen some good ones. McKeesport has kind of shades of that a little bit, but I think when you look at number 66 and number 57, they are the ones that can really cause disruption and havoc. And we have to make sure that those are our emphasis in terms of what we're going to do against them.
Well, Matt, as always, thanks for taking the time. I know a lot of eyes will be on your game Friday night, so good luck with that. And hopefully we'll see another postseason run for the Leopards this year.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward and hoping that we can speak again next week, guys.
That is Matt Humbert, the head coach of the Belle Vernon area Leopards. We'll take a break and continue right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Coming winter 2024, DBAT Pittsburgh East will be bringing the DBAT Sports family to Pittsburgh's East neighborhoods, featuring a 20,000 square foot state-of-the-art baseball and softball training facility with 4 dual Fungoman automatic pitching machines, 9 lesson cages featuring the best training tech in the game, including pro-sized baseball and fast-pitch bullpens, elite speed, strength, and agility coaching, professional baseball and softball instruction, 50-plus camps, clinics, party room, and a pro shop powered by pro preferred brands Rawlings and Easton. Now offering Founders Club memberships. Learn more at dbatpiteast.com.
Back here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron, we appreciate Matt Humbert, the head coach of the Belle Vernon area Leopards, for taking the time to talk to us. I love that Matt admitted, no, I never had a perfect game passing as a quarterback. He was a good one, but that's next level what Curdy Wade did this past week. So good stuff from Matt Humbert. He is the first of our 2 interviews. The second one upcoming will be with Mount Pleasant area's Jarrett Garn, because Flick, the people selected him as the interviewee.
They have, and I gotta applaud the viewers here and everyone that voted, because we had a large number of votes, even though it was posted during the Steeler game on Sunday night, in which Russ Wilson cooked. So there you go. So good job, everybody. But congratulations to Jarrett Garn. Again, he did it in so many different ways. A rushing touchdown, a receiving touchdown, a field goal. He had 4 extra points. He was great. So congratulations, of course, to Jarrett, but also our other nominees this week. Curdy Wade, you just talked about him, 100% in terms of his passing, 10 for 10. Those 3 touchdowns, 233 yards, and Johnny Wetzel, holy cow. 8 of 10 for 165 yards, 4 touchdowns in that game against Gateway, and he also ran for $139. So don't forget to vote. We have one more time this year. You have a chance to vote, and that is coming up this weekend after the Week 9 games.
Well, we will hear from the man of the hour, Jarrett Garn, who, by the way, has already been the man of the hour a few times this year. He's been on SportsCenter, but this is no doubt his biggest honor, talking to Dan Flickinger. That's upcoming next right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
I feel like it's definitely very important, like for high school, because a lot of kids, get peer pressured into drinking and doing drugs. So like doing the events like in a school setting, I feel like definitely like try to prevent kids from like going to like parties and drinking and driving and doing drugs and being peer pressured.
We just want to, talk about the dangers of the substance abuse in our community, and we want to help be a part of stopping that.
At Smale Kia, we know that winning takes hard work, dedication, and a commitment to excellence. By sponsoring Shining Stars, we'll select 2 teams each season to help fund their booster programs. Rewarding their hard work, athletic progress, and community service is an investment we're proud to make. Right now, lease a 2025 Kia Sportage EX all-wheel drive, $299 a month, or lease a 2024 Kia Forte LXS for only $175 a month. Route 30 East Greensburg or smalekia.com.
Chatfield rolls to his right under some pressure. He throws. He's got a man open and is caught by Garn. And Jarrett Garn is in for the touchdown for the Vikings.
This is Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Dan Flickinger back with you, and it is time to talk with our Week 8 Westmoreland Sports Network Player of the Week, and he is none other than senior from the Mount Pleasant Vikings, Jarrett Garn. He is a Swiss Army knife for the Vikings, I like to call him. Wide receiver, you'll see him at running back, you'll see him at defensive back, you'll see him at kicker. He does it all for Coach Jason Fazikis. And Jarrett, first of all, thanks for joining me. Congratulations. And I also like to call you Mr. Sports Center, which we'll get into a little bit later. But first of all, again, thanks for joining us, and congrats on being named Player of the Week.
Thank you. It's definitely an honor.
Well, let's get right into it because we have so many things really to talk about with you. Again, you rushed for a touchdown last week against Derry in a victory. Also caught a touchdown pass. You kicked a field goal, and you went 4 for 4 on extra points. So a tremendous job by you. Do you believe the win over Derry was kind of your most complete victory of the season and a much-needed one here with a playoff spot on the line?
I mean, I would definitely say it was a very good game. Going into it, we believed it was going to be a really close game. And so whenever we went out there and we exceeded how we did, I was definitely excited to see the team go like that. I mean, going into it, we opened up our playbook a lot. Normally, we have a lot of running. And so seeing that we opened up and passed a lot more, I think that did help us excel the way we did. And so being that we were able to clinch the playoff spot and solidify that was definitely exciting.
Yeah, the thought process coming into the game against Derry, I'm sure, was like, I mean, you're obviously going into every game wanting to win it, but with that playoff spot on the line, is that something you guys discussed at all, something you focused on, like, hey, we got to get this win tonight if we want to, reach one of our goals?
I mean, yeah, it was definitely something that the coaches were, I wouldn't say pounding into us, but they were definitely bringing it up. I mean, that is definitely a motivation, being able to extend the season like that and making it set in stone as well. So they did bring it up, and that was definitely something that I was thinking about throughout the game. And seeing us win like that was definitely exciting.
Well, you guys got off to a tremendous start. You had 2 touchdowns yourself early in the game, and really that helped you guys win the game, getting it off to that hot start. What was the key to beginning the game so well for you?
Well, I mean, practicing like throughout the week, we had put in plays where normally we would do runs off of. And so almost faking the pass throughout our run scheme, we were able to open up the field a lot more. And that allowed us get like more of a versatile start and get me open out there like that for the first passing touchdown.
Well, the offense scored 31. That was good. But the defense only allowed 14 points. And really, I believe one of those touchdowns in the first quarter, then late in the game, you allowed one. So it was kind of inconsequential at that point. What was the key for you guys on defense against Derry to play so well?
I mean, throughout the week, we have been like watching their film and adjusting our defense to that. And I mean, our defense as well also had 7 of our 31 points off of a blocked punt. So, I mean, it was definitely exciting to see that. But we were ready for the run scheme for the most part. We felt confident in our passing. And so we prioritized like where our linebackers would be and our linemen. And I mean, they definitely did a great job stopping the running. So,
yeah, and
I think that was definitely significant.
Yeah, and Cole Chatfield hit you on a beautiful pass. Unfortunately, I know he's a little bit banged up right now. Hopefully, Cole can come back. But I have to ask you about your career-long 45-yard field goal right before the end of the first half. What was kind of going through your mind when you went out there, being more of a long-distance kick? I mean, did it make you a little more excited to try it?
I mean, it's definitely exciting every time I hear field goal, being that, I mean, it's obviously not something we do often. And so getting the ability to put that on record and it being my farthest as well was definitely exciting. But I mean, I've been practicing and I felt confident, but there's always that aspect of a little bit of nervousness, like trying something like that, especially in game, because in practice to in game live is definitely completely different than any practice setting we're going to get. So whenever I saw it go through, I was definitely calm, but also very excited to be able to have that.
So 45 yards is your career long in practice, just screwing around a little bit. What was the longest you've ever hit?
The longest I've ever hit was actually at Cole's kicking camp, probably 2 weeks ago now. And I believe it was 59 yards into like crosswind. So,
oh, wow.
I mean, it was definitely nice to do that. And I wasn't expecting that because the farthest we'd go back at practice, like throughout the high school, would be 50 yards. And so, I mean, hitting 9 yards farther might not seem like a lot, but it's definitely pretty good. Yeah. So I caught myself on guard with that.
And you realize, I mean, that's That's great for like an NFL kicker, 59 yards. That's ridiculous. That's great. I'm sure that helped you did that help give you confidence then when you went out for the 45-yarder? I know it's different in game and in practice and in camps and things like that, but that probably had to give you a little extra advantage.
I mean, yeah, it definitely did. But I mean, being that some of our kicks in the past have got blocked, there's always that thought process that could happen as well. But I mean, trust in the line, and I mean, it went in. So definitely exciting.
Talking with our Week 8 Westmoreland Sports Network Player of the Week, Jarrett Garn for the Mount Pleasant Vikings. His Vikings with a win over the Derry Trojans on Friday. What is it like being so versatile? It has to be fun, right? I mean, you get to play, as I mentioned earlier, a little running back, a little receiver, defensive back, and then you're kicking. Does that make it a little more fun for you?
I mean, yeah, it's definitely exciting to get out there. And I mean, obviously, like I know the position I'm playing, but I never know what the play is going to bring. I mean, one play I might be blocking on offense, and the next play I'm going for a run, or I might be out in the slot running like a different route. And so being that I'm a potential target in any of those positions is definitely exciting. And even throughout practice, just getting to practice those different positions throughout the week is also fun.
And of course, you all also are on the soccer team. Unfortunate tough loss earlier this week in the playoffs to Shadyside Academy. But what will you kind of take away from your time playing soccer? And how challenging has it been, Jarrett, to juggle two fall sports? I mean, that can't be easy.
I mean, it definitely isn't easy. And to be honest, I mainly focus on football, being that I put so much time into soccer in the past. I feel confident in my abilities in that. But it definitely puts wear on the body. So I try to, I mean, I don't really go to soccer practice, so that also helps like keep like energy up and stamina. And so, I mean, going throughout the year, our trainer definitely helps. I mean, being able to go on and get stim and all that and keep my body rejuvenated for the games. But overall, I mean, the season and playing soccer has taught me, I mean, definitely a lot about team sports. And being that I played that for nearly 10 years before I even started football, it definitely built a good team aspect and, like good sportsmanship that you need. And so being on that team was definitely exciting, and they were all amazing players. And I'm really excited to see what they do with the years coming.
And you're also a member of the track team. You finished second in the Whippeal and in the 200 meter. And I'm sure you're focused on maybe getting a gold medal coming up a little bit later on this year. But what do you like most about running track?
I mean, I'm definitely seeking that first place this year. But I was excited to see the kid last year as well, being that he was a senior and he was able to get the gold as well. But coming up this year, I definitely want to focus and prioritize my time on the 1 and 200, but also hopefully a 4x1 team as well, because I think that's the most exciting event I participated in, but sadly did not this past season due to just the personnel on our team. So I would like to get back into that as well.
All right, so maybe I haven't gotten to the most exciting part of the interview yet, and that is when you got on SportsCenter a few weeks ago with your amazing catch against York. And I just have to tell my side of the story. That night, I wasn't at the Mount Pleasant York game. I was at a different game producing, but one of our guys sent me a text message and said, "You got to see this catch that Garn made. It was unbelievable." And I was like, okay, send it to me if you get a chance. And, he sent me a screen capture of it. And I'm like, we got to see if we can get this on You Got Mossed. And when we tweeted it out, I thought, I'll just hashtag SC Top 10. And I know I was messaging you. We were messaging you as well to let you know we were doing this. And we're like, what the heck? We'll put SC Top 10 on it. And then I got a message the next morning. Hey, I just saw Mount Pleasant was on SportsCenter, and then you were on You Got Mossed as well, that segment. So kind of take me through your side of the story, like, when you first heard that you got on and then the Moss segment. And I'm sure you got a bunch of text messages, and just take me through all of that, because that's something that, I'm sure you'll remember forever.
I mean, yeah, it was definitely exciting, but going back to the beginning, as you said, in the moment, I didn't even realize like the play and like how significant it would have been, being that like, it's like, in the game, like I like caught the ball, like a touchdown, it was a close game. So my thoughts were like, like next play, like I got the kick, I did this. And so, I mean, some of my teammates were like, oh, that's like a crazy catch. And I didn't realize like how, like significant it was until like, honestly, you texted me and said like, oh, we're going to try and get it on there. Like I didn't even see a chance of that even happening. And it wouldn't have been until the next day I was at practice that I even realized I made it on there, when one of our coaches or players actually came to me and like, oh, did you see that you made like second place on Sports Center's top 10?
Come on. He's not talking about us. Mount Pleasant's Colt Chatfield. This is high school football, throwing it deep downfield to Jarrett Garn. Quadruple coverage? And he wasn't done. Okay, actually triple coverage. Had some defenders just watching. One guy was on the ground. They had a front row seat. You saw that on Westmoreland Sports Network.
And so, I mean, it was definitely exciting. And then going on to, like you said, the Randy Moss segment.
Let's go high school ranks, Pennsylvania football right here. Mount Pleasant versus York. York? You're going to look at this one, York. You got 3 defenders over there. How the heck you not make a play? But Jared Garn makes a play. Garn makes an unbelievable catch. Are you kidding me?
Over 3 guys.
Look at that. Let's do one more look at it.
Rolls to his left.
After 3 guys, defense corner is like, man, what a great call. You got Moss.
I never expected it to go nearly that far, and it's definitely really cool to have like Randy Moss talking about it like that. So I definitely will remember this moment.
And did you hear from, I mean, were people like texting you, maybe, you know, your family saying, oh my God, this is awesome. We saw it on.
I mean, yeah, I definitely got a lot of texts, and it was really cool. We even had like some of my, like our past teammates. He might have actually been the one who texted me to begin with, saying that he was sitting there like eating breakfast or something that morning whenever he saw it. But yeah, it was definitely something exciting to celebrate with everybody.
That is so cool. And that's something, again, that not many, I mean, how many people can actually say they were on SportsCenter top 10 and you got mossed, you know, not just one, but both. That's really cool. And we're so happy for you, Jarrett. Before we talk, I want to ask you about Elizabeth Forward and what you guys have to do to come away with a win on Friday. But one other thing I have to ask you about, I was reading an article that you took some flying lessons. I believe it was in the summertime. Is that kind of still happening? What was that like?
I mean, yeah, I did. I took 1 or 2 flight lessons, and it was definitely exciting. And it was something that I wanted to pursue. And I definitely believe I still will pursue it, even if it's just a private license, because I really do enjoy it. And just being up that high and being able to see everything is definitely exciting. But I mean, yeah, for a career, I don't know if I'll possibly pursue it mainly for like my career, just because of the way you have to work and the long time out. And so being that I would like to have like a family and oriented towards that, I'm not sure I see that for my full-time career.
Yeah, full-time career would be tough, but it's nice to have, you know, on the side maybe for fun. And so that's pretty neat. Not many people, I don't think, have their pilot license either. So that's really neat. So let's talk about Elizabeth Forward. Obviously, they're top dog right now in the conference. They knocked off Southmoreland last week. What kind of do you see from them, and what do you guys have to do to have a victory here on Friday night?
I mean, it's definitely going to take a lot of practice and like focus, mainly like towards their offense, as it is really strong. But we played them really well on our field over the past few years, and so I'm really hoping that we can do that again. Last year, I don't believe showed like the true aspect of how the game was, being that within like the last 30 seconds they were able to put up another touchdown or 2, and so being that we have played them so well in the past, I think we have a good chance. I mean, we just have to stop some of their star players like, you know, Charlie Niggett. And I mean, they are really good players, and I won't take that away from them. And so I believe we do have a chance for them. And I mean, we'll just go into it head high and, you know, trust in the Lord that we can do it. So
love to hear it. Love to hear it. Jarrett, excellent job with the interview. Congratulations again. And good luck on Friday night against Elizabeth Forward and the rest of the season.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. That was Jarrett Garn, our Week 8 Westmoreland Sports Network Player of the Week. We'll talk a little bit more about that Mount Pleasant EF game and a lot more in our Week 9 preview coming up next right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
I am the swiftest creature alive. I can make it. I will make it.
That's where we come in. The Collision Shop by Jason Mignon is your one-stop shop for all things auto body repair. Our experienced technicians and state-of-the-art facilities have you covered. Body repairs, refinishing, glass replacement, and more. Our friendly office staff is happy to assist you through every step of your vehicle's repair process. Visit thecollisionshopbyjason.com for our complete list of services.
Welcome back here on WSN's Westmoreland on the Gridiron. We appreciate Jarrett Garn taking the time, the Mount Pleasant man, Now let's look ahead at the Week 9 slate of games, the final week of the regular season. For many of these teams, or for at least several of them, it will be the final game that they play this year. Hopefully for many more, it is just a springboard into the postseason. Games we will have coverage of this weekend: Penn Trafford at Greater Latrobe. Of course, the big story here, Greater Latrobe trying to get into the playoffs to win a wild card spot, but just as equally as significant of a story, Ron Prady, John Ruane, and Flick, you can appreciate what that matchup means.
I absolutely can. I have, we started covering Penn Trafford our first year 15 years ago. And I remember, now back then we used to basically just cover Penn Trafford. It was our first year of covering anybody, right? It was the first year of Westmoreland Sports Network. So we used to go in every week and do interviews with Coach Ruane in the Warrior Center over there at Penn Trafford. And of course, Boomer was an assistant coach. And man, those guys, let's just put it this way. John could not do an interview with those guys watching because he couldn't get through the interview without laughing. And that actually happened at Manor Valley a couple months ago at the coaches show. I'm up there interviewing John, and I was interviewing Boomer as well, and the other guys doing stuff, making faces and all that, and they're trying to hold it together. So now, of course, that's all fun and good right now, but this week it's a little different. I mean, there's no doubt about it. The win for both teams would be big, maybe even bigger for Latrobe because that might get them a playoff spot. But this should be a fun one for sure, and see what happens.
Yeah, and they're locked into the second spot out of that conference are the Warriors. Franklin Regional, which is hosting Armstrong, is locked into the third spot. Again, it's about momentum and obviously impacting the seeding overall in the bracket. So that game will be on video. Obviously, FR looking to bounce back after their loss a week ago. Armstrong has struggled this year, just 2-7. Southmoreland at Greensburg. Salem. Scotty's in with a win. If the Golden Lions win, they have a real opportunity to clinch one of the playoff spots. If nothing else, they would almost guarantee a wild card spot. That should be a good matchup, 7-2 against 6-3, two programs that are really having nice years. We will have that on video as well. We will also have coverage of Dairy Area at York, as both those teams trying to finish their season on a high note. Other games this Friday: Norwin at Mount Lebanon, couple of 2-7 teams. The Knights eliminated the Blue Devils, looking to punch their ticket to the postseason. Kiski Area at Woodland Hills. If the Cavaliers somehow, some way win this one, they almost certainly would be in the postseason. Although, who knows? Greater Latrobe wins, Kiski Area wins. Comes a little bit of a toss-up. That will be a stiff test, however, at the Wolverina. Woodland Hills already the number one team out of the conference, so they don't have a ton to play for. Bell Vernon Area at Trinity. Speaking of a ton to play for, win is in, loss, and it comes down to sweating it out for the wild card. The Leopards do not want a playoff committee determining their playoff fate. Elizabeth Forward looking to capture the section title. Mount Pleasant Area still has a chance, however. That one, 6-3 Warriors at 5-4 Vikings. That will be a big-time matchup on Friday. Burrell at Deer Lakes. The Buccaneers trying to get a third win in the conference. Highlands at Valley. The Vikings hoping to avoid an 0-10 season. Apollo Ridge at Ligonier Valley in Class 2A. Greensburg Central Catholic at Leechburg. This is a big matchup. Both teams are in the postseason, and yet, Flick, it feels like this one will be massive in terms of which team potentially gets second out of the Eastern Conference and, maybe gets a really beneficial seed as well, because I think that committee is going to look at Clareton dominating everyone and say, well, these teams in other conferences maybe could be title contenders.
Yeah, you always want to obviously get as good of a seed as you possibly can, and being able to solidify yourself as a second place team would be huge. And with Leechburg's offense, I know they didn't look great against Clareton. Nobody has all year, but they're a good offense. GCC has a really good offense. Samir Crosby on one side, and we know the Leechburg guys, their offensive weapons too. This should be a really fun game, I think, on Friday.
Yeah, Jaden Floyd's a special player. Samir Crosby is a special player. I mentioned this very briefly earlier. GCC had an idle week. They technically won against Fraser, but they didn't play the game because the Commodores just did not have enough players. They canceled pretty late in the process, so there was no chance for GCC to get another game in. So they should be well rested. I think at this time of year, you probably don't mind that necessarily, even though it's kind of taking a game away from the players who want to play as much as they can.
Yeah, and JT said that a light practice on Friday, and he said he went out on a date night with his wife on Friday night.
He is one of those guys that he spends like every waking hour doing study, preparation, film review for the upcoming opponent. So he leaves no stone unturned.
Where do you think they went to, like Joey O's or Gianilli's, maybe right, by the school, or I don't know, Olive Garden? I don't know. I mean,
nice.
It could
not
be
the ground round. I can confirm that.
No, unfortunately, not the ground round. TJ, give a shout out to TJ. That was his favorite restaurant.
TJ DeStefano.
More importantly, his favorite bar. Anyway.
Another game that has some playoff implications. Monessen at Cornell. Each of those teams 7-2 overall on the campaign. Winner is in for sure in that one. Non-conference Hempfield area at Gateway. Again, this one will not be affecting the 6A or playoff, 6A or 5A standings in the conference, but maybe for Gateway, it could potentially factor into the wild card, I suppose. We don't really know what the committee is going to be looking at. So I think that one, if they knock off a 6A team, maybe does help their cause to some extent. And a big one on Saturday, Jeanette at Riverview. Jayhawks in with a win. If they lose, it becomes very interesting. We'll see how it plays out. But Jeanette's going to have to win one on the road in Oakmont against a Raiders team that's been certainly solid this season. That is a noon kickoff on Saturday. A little bit later on Saturday, Flick, we will have Seton Hill football as the Griffins welcome Clarion. Seton Hill looking to bounce back after that tough loss at IUP last week. That will be a video broadcast. And then Carnegie Mellon, a very good team, at St. Vincent in Latrobe Saturday at 1. Final thoughts before we send it off to the final week of the regular season.
Well, first of all, it's a shame. You look at Seton Hill, they've played Cal and IUP in back-to-back weeks, and typically, the scores would not be pretty. They lose 2 close games, and they had IUP on the ropes, so unfortunately 2 losses there to IUP and Cal U. But this is what we live for, right? Week 9 of the high school football season. The pretenders kind of get weeded out. The contenders get weeded out as well. And we'll see how it all shakes out on Friday night, but it should be a lot of fun. 4 video broadcasts coming at you, and we'll have coverage of the other games on our scoreboard as well as on Twitter. And let's get after it, buddy.
Yeah, and then, of course, we will have the recaps. And then next week, you have to tune in, is our big playoff version of Westmoreland
right here.
Gridiron. We will have hopefully about 10 interviews with Westmoreland County coaches who are postseason bound. So that will be a fun one next week. We'll look at all the matchups, break it all down. But for now, let's sign off for tonight. For my colleague Dan Flickinger, Sean Myers saying thank you so much for tuning in. We'll catch you again next Wednesday at 7 p.m. on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Good night.